coming here is, so let's see some hands. Who's here for the first time at Devnexus? Great, because when Pratik asked this question at keynote yesterday, we had lots and lots of hands, and that made me very, very happy. What is not making me happy is that my slides are dead. I think my whole computer right now is frozen. I might need to restart in a moment. Well, it looks like it's my machine. I may just have to kill it and restart. It'll just take a moment. So, but we can go through the other things quickly. So the topic of today is setting up the data-driven test cases with Java tools. Now, yeah, my machine is dead now. Good, now restarting. Okay, so my name is Almiray. I'm a senior principal product manager at Oracle, which is kind of like a fancy title for someone that goes around the world talking about technologies, talking about experiences, working with open source and closed source, which is what I like to do. And this, I believe, is my 5th time at Devnexus, and this is a conference that I really enjoy speaking at. Come on, work. Where's my password? If you could only see what I'm doing here. Yes, exactly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does everyone know that reference? Spaceballs. Yeah, I'm dating myself. Perfect. Still rebooting. So one of the things that I said I'd like to talk about is open source and different technologies that I have learned across my career. And one of the things that I would like to showcase today is one of those technologies that I believe is is a game changer. You'll see that in a moment, and I'm hopeful that most of you have heard of it, and if you haven't, then this is definitely the session for you. So this is the agenda that I have for you. Where are we currently when testing, when we're connected to databases? I'm going to showcase a few testing tools and showcase also specific database software. We'll do a demo that hopefully will work as well, and have a list of resources for you. Please feel free to stop me at any time if you have any questions, and I will also be for the rest of the day here, just wander around. I have another session later in case that you want to ask other questions. Okay, so story time. So this is something that happened to me, and you let me know if this is something that has something similar that has happened to you as well. So many, many, many years ago, I had the privilege of being in charge of a particular piece of software that required a database. Now, this database at the time was Oracle XC, so we're talking about 20 years ago. Now, the thing that at the time, I needed to have a very specific version of that database running on somewhere, and I did not have admin rights for this instance. I had to talk to someone on the IT department, hey, ring in, I need that given version of the software available in such server, blah, 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 and then 3 months later, he will say, yeah, it's ready, and by the way, it's the wrong version, and you don't have access to admin, so you cannot do anything, blah, blah, you know how these things go. You have something running at some point, good, and then the thing is that now that this thing is running, you cannot share with anyone else with your team, because if they touch it, and you run your test cases at the same time, how are you going to ensure that the state of the database is the correct one while you're running and while you're doing the assertions, right? The same thing will happen when you are already expanding to CI and CD. This particular instance of a database cannot be shared with the CI service because of the same reasons. How are you going to ensure that no one has touched the database, have not moved anything in the configuration so that your test can continue to be green? So provisioning was a big, big issue back then. Now, it's easy to provision databases such as MySQL and Postgres, and it's just use a package manager, or you can run on containers as well. Yeah, that's good. The other thing that we used to do in the past, instead of running the actual database software that we needed for testing, we will use an in-memory database. So who uses H2 or HCLDB still today? Good, a few hands, perfect. Because back in the day, this is what we had to do, because that makes things much easier, right? But if we had to run a specific feature of that database, such as PL/SQL or something else, you could certainly not fake that with an in-memory database. So that meant that either we don't test it, which is quite risky, or we just let our users test in production, right? Not good either. So we needed something different for this. But let's assume that we have passed that problem, that we are able to provision the database instance with the right software, the right version, with the right settings. Yeah, the next thing would be is, how do we put the database in a given state for every single test that we want to run? How do we ensure that it has the right data set? And we can have multiple data sets depending on the use cases. How we make sure that those things happen at the right time? And the next thing is, say that we do that. How can we verify that when the application performs the behavior that it needs to do, that the database was affected in the correct way? If we use the same code as we have in the application, where we're testing the application itself, so that's kind of weird if we use the same application code. We could go one level down at the framework level. For example, who here uses Spring frameworks? Spring Data, yeah, most of you. Or Macro Data, Jakarta Data, all these things. So if we go down to that level, yes, it's one level down from where we're currently at, but there could also be hidden bugs. There could be latency issues. There could be something else in between. So it would be better if we can go even closer to the database. So we need something that has a little abstraction up to the database, but just enough so that we can avoid going through too many layers in between. So how can we do that? So that's part of the inspection. How can we ensure that? I will show you in a moment, because otherwise, well, this was me trying to figure out those things 20 years ago. I'm very happy that with the tools that we have today, these things are much, much easier. Hopefully, this is not you one of these working days. For this, we need tools, and I'm going to showcase a couple of tools. To begin with, Testcontainers. Who knows Testcontainers? Great. I do have stickers from Testcontainers with me, and I will share in a moment. And so I'm happy, in a way, I'm happy that not that many know what Testcontainers is, so I can explain it. I'm a bit sad because everybody should know what Testcontainers is, and I'll tell you in a moment why. So Testcontainers, by the name, implies that we're using it for testing, and it has to do with container technology. So exactly what I explained before, provisioning a database with the right state, with the right software, it's troublesome. If you want to do it for every time that you want to run a test case, or anywhere you want to run your things, whether it's CI or local environment or some other machine, this could also be troublesome and tiresome. But Testcontainers makes things way, way simpler. The idea behind this library, or set of tools actually, is that you will run, someone will be in charge of running a container with the software that you need, in this case, a database, or it could be a Kafka or RabbitMQ, what have you, whatever is possible to run on a container. This container will be started just before your test cases. And then you run your unit test cases, integration, functional, what have you. And at the end of all your test methods, whether they're successful or not, that's beside the point. Hopefully all of them are green. Then the containers will be shut down and the memory will reclaim, so there's no memory leak. So that's the whole point of Testcontainers. That's the basic idea. There's more behind it, of course. I'm just oversimplifying, but that's the key. Now, as you can see in this particular page, they support different languages. Obviously, we are at a Java conference, and Testcontainers started with Java. But if you happen to need other languages as Python, Go, Rust, then you can certainly do so. They have this idea of modules. The modules are a way for you to bootstrap a very specific piece of software. So you can run any container with any software you want to. But if you want to run Postgres, there is a Postgres module that simplifies how you set up a specific Postgres instance. And the same goes for MySQL and for Oracle or for anything else that can be run on a container. If you browse through the list of modules and if you do not find the one that you may need for the given software, then you have two choices. You can continue to use the generic Testcontainer class, or you can ask the community to see if someone will be willing to create a module. Or if you have the time and you have the skills, you can certainly create the module yourself, because most modules are community contributed. Obviously, we're talking about Java, so I will expect that, I think I already asked this question, how many people use these particular frameworks? Most of the times when I ask this question, it's between 60 to 70% they use Spring-based technologies, 15 to 20 maybe using Quarkus, Jakarta, Macron, and Helidon. The good thing is that regardless of which framework you use, Testcontainers is integrated very well with all of them. So the other thing that I like about these frameworks is that, yes, the names of the annotations may be different. The names of the base classes may be a little bit different or similar. But if you learn Spring and in your next job you need to use Quarkus, it's easy to translate your knowledge. You don't have to start from scratch. And the same way goes if you go with any Jakarta EE implementation or go with Micronaut. So the name of annotation, it's similar, it's in a different package, but the behavior is almost the same. Okay, so by now I will expect that most of you use tests and write tests, and hope that most of you are using JUnit 5. Is anyone still here using JUnit 4? Okay, great, and no one using JUnit 3. Good, perfect. This means that JUnit 5 has been very, very successful to move the whole community forward. So JUnit 5 gives modern capabilities such as lambdas, and that we couldn't use before, and another set of annotations, and a revamped way how to create extensions. This will come up in a moment. Now, there's another project called DbUnit. This was born in the early days of JUnit. So I think this project started sometime in 2004, 2003. And DbUnit is one of these great projects that allows you to do a lot of things, and it's tiny. As a matter of fact, it's just a personal connection with this project. This is the project where I made my first open source contribution 16 years ago. Basically, the idea behind this project is it allows you to do two big things. One is to seed a database with a given data set and verify later any kind of operations that you have applied to the database. And the other thing that allows you to do is that you can export a set of tables or any relationships in your database as a data set, as an external file. Why would you like to do this? Because those external files could be later be used to seed the database, or you can use it for any other kind of tools. Now, DbUnit is still all in such a way because it's still written such that it's JUnit 4 compatible. There is another tool called Database Rider, which is an extension of DbUnit that brings DbUnit to the modern world. So this is the one that gives you, again, access to lambdas and a few other things, and simplifies the usage of DbUnit with additional annotations. So if you already know DbUnit and you're tired of repeating yourself, then Database Rider will be the way to go. Okay, next. So I'm going to talk about database software, and it should not be a surprise that I'm going to talk a little about the Oracle database, but it's for a couple of reasons. One, obviously, because I'm working for Oracle, but another one is that there are very good benefits for us developers if you want to use any of these databases. So the most commonly used relational databases in productions are these ones. Obviously, there's also Microsoft SQL Server. But these two, MySQL and Postgres, are used a lot because they're very easy to set up. You can run it on a local environment, you can put it on CI, you can run it on container in a snap very quickly. Now, if anyone else has had an experience with setting up Oracle databases, we will wish it was as easy as setting up the others, right? Well, guess what? It is, if you didn't know. So one of the things that I like about the Oracle database is this thing called the Oracle Convergence database. It's nothing new, it's not unique to the Oracle database. This is known as the multi-model. Other database vendors have this. It's basically a way for you to use different data storage, format storages in the same database engine. So you can have relational and documents and graph and spatial. And of course, we are now in the times of AI. You can also store vectors. So there's a lot of things here. I believe that the Oracle database is the one that gives you the most formats under the same database engine. So this is one of the things that excites me as a developer because I can just pick and choose any format I need depending on my use case. And I can also use one single query language to query across the different formats. So I can do a JSON projection on JSON properties as if they were relational columns, alongside relational data, alongside graph or everything else. It's really cool. Instead of doing these kind of projections and relationships one level up at the application layer. This is certainly doable, but if we're just dealing with data, I think it's better to let the database deal with the data itself. So that's why I like this thing. There are other things visible in the Oracle database. There are free tools. We can connect with all different languages. There's a low-code solution called Apex. We have free tools to connect to it. SQL CL is a new command line tool, and SQL Developer. There is even an extension on VS Code that you can run. So all of these things are available for free. Now, where can we get these things? There is a cloud option called Autonomous Database. There's a link over there in the QR code. This is the one that you can run on the Oracle Cloud. Who uses Oracle Cloud? Few hands, exactly, that's what I expected. So who uses Microsoft Azure? Okay, few hands as well. Who uses Google Cloud? More hands. Who uses Amazon? I expect most of you. Now, it would be great if you could use the Oracle database, the cloud database in those clouds, right? Guess what? You can, finally. Since September of 2 years ago, you can use it on Azure. Since June of last year, we announced Google Cloud. In November of last year, we announced Amazon. So pretty much on all the big clouds, you can run this thing and it will be managed for you. You just have to go there to this particular website, sign up, and you get 2 instances, the real software, for free, forever. You can just use it. You have a few other resources. You have a load balancer. You have computer instances for Intel and ARM chips. The number of resources that will be available will always be listed in that page. So I don't want to say something that's wrong. So if you want to know more about all the different resources you can have access to, just browse to that particular web page and sign up. You need a credit card just so we know that there's a human behind it. We don't want crypto miners. But that's the only thing. Your credit card will never be charged. But that's great for the cloud. What about for running on-premise on your local environment on a CI/7? Well, there is this version called the Oracle Database Free that you can run on Windows, on Linux, and since November of last year, you can also run it on ARM chips. So you can run it on this machine as well. So we pretty much cover everything. Now, this particular version of the database, you can run it on test environment, development environment, and production environment for free. That's great. I mean, you can easily install this thing, but we can also install it from containers. So the ones at the bottom, there is the cloud version, ADB free, and there is free. These are the official images coming from the official registry. These images contain everything that you might need in order to run the database. So they're a bit big in size. They're close. The database free here is about 9 gigabytes in size and takes 3 minutes to start. If you want to put this in production, that's kind of okay, I guess. But if you want to use this for testing, those 3 minutes will certainly kill your productivity. So we had to have an alternative. Well, we do. We have other images at this particular location, OCI Oracle Free, starting from version 23 AI and onward. These images take around 900 megabytes. They're layered, so the cache is working pretty well. And they boot up in 10 seconds. So that's a lot of speed compared to the 180 we had. In comparison, Postgres starts in 1 second. So 1 second, 10 seconds, there's still room for improvement, but that's way, way, way better than we had before. So use Docker or use Podman, and you're off to go. If you wanted or you need to run previous versions of the database, so from 11 to 21, then we have another set of images, the OCI Oracle XE. These will also have smaller footprints, and they start very fast. The next question you might be asking, Angres, this is great. We now have third-party images. These are not coming from the official Oracle registry. Who's that person? Who's that G. Wenzel guy? It's maybe some random guy in the internet. Are we gonna get some malware by using these particular images? Don't sweat it. That guy over there, that's my manager. That's still an Oracle person that is producing these images. So we know what we're doing. We're just putting it out there for anyone to use. Okay. So we're back to the modules from Testcontainers. Here's a list of some of the database supported by the modules. So we see that there's Postgres and there's MySQL. And we had the two modules for Oracle, the Oracle Free and Oracle XE. So it's just one dependency that you have to add to your build, whether it's Maven, Gradle, SVT, or what have you, and you will be able to consume any of these databases. It's quite simple. Once you add the dependency, then what you do in your test case is something like this. You instantiate a new container for the given software, provide the image that you want to use. In this case, we're using 23.4. By the way, the latest release is 23.7 that was released just yesterday. And so you can, once we have the image ready on the website that I showed you a few slides ago, you will be able to use it there and just start a container. It's as easy as that. Okay, so now let's go into the demo. Let's see if this works. Because this is what I was afraid of, that the slides were being displayed, but I don't see the rest. Where's the mirroring? Okay, I have my mirroring settings. This is going to be awkward if you guys cannot see the demo. Yes. Well, I'm not in full screen. I just have IntelliJ here. I don't know why I Okay, I know why. Choose content. I want to mirror the entire screen. Yeah. Woo. Okay, so I have a very trivial, I think this is a Spring application. This application actually doesn't do anything at all, nothing useful. It has a domain entity like this. There's only some annotations, simple properties, and we have a repository that has a custom finder. Nothing really special here. Obviously, for your application, you're going to have much more details on your domain entities. And the application itself doesn't do anything at all. Because what I want to showcase is how we do the setup for the test cases. And then you can expand this further into your specific configuration. So I have two database tests here, one for DbUnit and another for Database Rider. I'm going to showcase the first one. Go away. Then we do this. All right. So there's going to be a lot of setup here. This is not the optimal way to test with Testcontainers and Spring. There's an even better version with an additional annotation that will take care of most of the setup for us. So the first thing that we're seeing here is we define an instance for that Oracle container that will allow us to bootstrap the Oracle database with that particular image. So that will be version 23.6. And then before every test method and after every test method, or before all the test methods and after all the test methods, we're going to manually start the container and shut down the container. And because we are generating these containers on the fly, we have no idea. It will be on a random port. It could be using a random username and a random password. So we're using these properties here to connect the application context, the dependency injection context, to those randomly generated properties. The next thing we're going to do here is include a DbUnit, and this is my contribution to DbUnit. In the past, you had to extend from a given test case in order to make use of DbUnit. But with this, we can use composition. So what we're going to do is have an Oracle database tester, which is this class here. The only thing that it does is connect from a data source database tester. So you have to supply a data source object, which we can get automatically injected by the dependency injection container. And the reason why we're doing this thing, why we're creating this custom class here, is because DbUnit by default does not know about the Oracle dialect, the latest version. That's the only reason why we're doing this. So there's a lot of plumbing that we're doing this here. We will make this thing better. We're just making sure at the beginning that it works. All right? The next thing we do here for the database tester is that we will supply an initial data set. And that data set is going to come from an XML file. This XML file is something that you can write by hand, or you can tell DbUnit to extract that from the database and then store it as an external file. And then we'll have two test methods. One, where we're doing some sort of sanity check if the Spring data is working properly, because what we're doing there is doing a simple query. Give me the list of customers that I have in the database. Those customers will be coming from the data set, which I'm going to show in a moment. And if we did things correctly, and if the Spring data is not doing something weird, then no changes to the database should happen, right? That means that if I query 2 customers and I get 2 customers, we're good. If I get 1 less customer or more, someone mutated the database in between, and that means there might be a bug on the Spring data. Hopefully that's not the case. Now, in the other case, we are doing an insertion of a new customer, and we're doing an explicit verification. I grab an external data set here. It's an XML file with the expectations. Then in this case, I'm grabbing the current state of the database, and I'm going to do a comparison in memory of the 2 data sets. And if these 2 things happen to be equal, we're good. If they are different, then my expectations and the actual things are not correct. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to run this, and it should be green. And we will see test containers in action. So I have Podman running. I have just the Podman daemon, but I don't, and let me show you that it's actually true. Where's Podman? Here we are. I don't think I'm running any containers. So I have 2 images here, and 2 of them are stopped, and these won't be used for this demo. Now let's run. And here we have test containers. Starting our database. That was very quick. And we have 2 test cases. They were successful. Do you trust me that this ran? It says green, right? But never trust a test you have not seen fail at least once. That means we're going to change this, and our expectation should be 3 now. Let's rerun this, and the first test case now should fail. There's the application going on, and first test case failed, second test case correct. Where is the data set? The data set I said that is coming as an external file. So this is it. It's just one XML file where the names matches the table, and the attributes match the columns. Now this is the one that I'm using for seeding the database. This is the input. And this is the one that I'm using for the comparison. So once I insert a new customer, it should look like this. Now, obviously, this is quite trivial, very, very simple. You will have many, many more tables in your different data sets. This is where extracting the data set using DbUnit, the second feature, will come in handy, because we will definitely won't like to write these files by hand if they're too big. Also, who likes to work with XML? See, I didn't see any hands. So, yeah. But we'll have an option for you. So, let's turn into the next example. Remember that for this particular test case, we had to do a lot of plumbing to make this work. Let's see if we can do better. Let's show Database Rider. In Database Rider, now we are using 2 additional annotations. One is called DB Rider, and the other is Test Containers. With Test Containers, we are giving some hints to both the Spring Test and Test Container itself to do the managing for us. That means that we're creating explicitly an Oracle container here, but we are no longer starting and stopping the containers ourselves. That will be part of that annotation, Test Containers. And the other thing with Database Rider is that we can provide what are the inputs and the output data sets and have the verification happen automatically for us instead of doing things by hand. So all the plumbing that we had before is pretty much gone. Notice that our custom database tester is gone, that we don't need to inject something to handle the Oracle dialect. That is because Database Rider knows these things. It's much, much better. If we use the, I think it's, I don't know exactly what is the name of the annotation. It's add service something. That's the better way to test with a Spring Boot. Then this piece here, then we said we rearrange the properties, will also be gone. So your test cases will continue to be smaller. We auto-wire our customer repository because this is the thing that we're going to test. And then notice now how our test methods work. Conceptually, it's the same test case. We are testing that Spring data works and that we have not inserted something in between, a simple query. And on the other case, we are testing that we did the insert properly. So we have two annotations, one for the incoming data set and the expected data set. And we're using two data sets here, two external files. Notice that in this case now, there will be YAML. And for the second data test, we just have to insert something, and you're done. So in a previous place where I did this presentation, someone said to me, this is great in the case that, I mean, it's condensed. We have managed verifications and assertions, but in our company, we do have a policy, and we enforce this with static code analysis tools, that every test method must have at least one assertion. That means that even though Database Rider will do the right thing for us, I will fail a static code analysis here because I have no assertion whatsoever. So if that is the case, if you happen to work in a team where you have these kind of constraints, then we have to figure out if there is an additional assertion that makes sense to be added here, or if we can relax those constraints such that tools like Database Riders will be available. Okay, so now I'm going to run these test cases, and let's see what happens. Here we go. There's test containers, started our database. That was pretty fast. Database Rider outputs are a bit more metadata about your data set and your database here. For example, in case that you needed to do some sanity checks. It's not so much. But let's do something more interesting. Let's make this test case fail. But now I'm going to make it fail in the comparison. So the input data set and the expected data set will be the same. This will make the test case fail because we inserted a new element, right? Let's see that. It's running, and let's make it this bigger. First test case should be green, and second test case is red. Let's see why. It says that in table customers, we expected 2 elements, but we had 3. Good. We can change things. Let's make this fail in another way. Let's look at the input files. So this is one input file. We have 2 customers, John Doe and John Doe. And the expected data set looks like this. It's just Joe Cool that was added. Let's change the input data set here, this one, and change this to Atlanta. Why not? That means that this test case here, the second one, this one will fail as well because we're asking for everybody that has the last name Doe. Now there's going to be just 1 instead of 2. Let's see that. And the way that the error is reported should also be more descriptive. Okay, so we should have now 2 failing test cases, correct. And this one displays like this. I was expecting a customer, 2 customers, but I only got 1, and this is the one that I got. All right? Yes, this is a very trivial example, but this kind of showcases the potential of the things that we can do. Now, there was another thing that I wanted to showcase today, but I did not have the time to prepare it, is that who has to deal with PL SQL statements? Okay, just a few hands. You can test these things too, not with these tools, not with DbUnit or Database Rider. There is another tool in case that you're using Maven, is the Maven UPL SQL plugin, if I'm not mistaken. And this is the one that allows you to test out PL SQL statements. You can also combine it with Testcontainers to, again, set up that particular database instance for any given software that you wanted. All right, let's go back to the slides. There we go. I don't know why I have this thing here, this notification. We'll speed there. Okay, so what I can see about the future. So if you can set up your database tests with Testcontainers, you're pretty much good to go. Regardless of you using MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, or anything else. Just use it. I think that if I can recommend 2 things that you take home from this session, 1, have a look at Testcontainers. It's definitely going to change your life. And second, if you want, you can have access to the Oracle database also using containers and Testcontainers for free. So looking to the future is that, yes, use those technologies together. But if you can't, and if you're using CI solutions such as GitHub, whether it's GitHub for free or it's GitHub Enterprise, we do have other options. We do have a set of GitHub actions that allow you to use or set up databases easily. There's one for MySQL, there's one for Postgres, and there's also one for Oracle. We also would like to do the same things for GitLab CI and Jenkins, but for now we're starting with GitHub. So this is basically this action, which we just posted an update, our release is 1.20, I believe, 3 or 4 days ago. And this one allows you to set up an Oracle database on a container running on GitHub Actions. So you don't have to do things by hand. You just define that you want to use this action. You may supply some inputs that I want to use this particular password or this particular username or additional environmental variables, just like you would do with any other GitHub action, and you're good to go. So this is the thing that we want to do in my team in particular. We want to reduce the friction of developers, of people consuming these products so that they can create the solutions they need for the customers. Okay, so this is the boring slide. This is me. And I am a DbUnit contributor since the early days. I'm a Testcontainers community champion. I mentioned that I have stickers. I'm a Java champion alumni. And I really, really like to talk about these things. So if you have any questions, I'll be very, very happy to take them. Otherwise, thank you for coming. I hope that you take some things, you have new things that you have learned on this session. And yeah, thank you. Yes, that was very, very fast. Any questions so far? Yes.
So if your tests use something like UUIDs or other kinds of generated data, is there any way to make that work with the expected data sets?
Thank you very much for asking that question. I was waiting for that because this is nice, right? So we start with XML, not so nice. Then we go into YAML. This looks a bit better. But this data is set on stone. It's externalized. What do we do with dynamic data, with UIDs or timestamps? Well, DbUnit has the capability to create data sets programmatically. So, besides seeding information from external sources, you can read this in memory into a data set, then programmatically modify these things and inject the values you want, and then provide that data set to the operations that are required, which will be seed the database and do the verification. There is another tool out there, another library called Data Faker that generates random data for all kind of formats, all kind of things. You could use Data Faker alongside DbUnit using the programmatic API to enhance the data set, an existing external data set, to set those pieces of data that cannot be set directly into an external file. So you can combine all these things together. Yes. Yeah.
So for test containers, you're sharing that same container across all the tests within the that specific file, correct?
Yeah, so the thing is that this particular container here will be alive for the duration of all the test methods for that given test class. If you have multiple test classes and you're running in parallel, then that's why you would like to have this, the port and other properties to be completely random. Hopefully there won't be any collisions. And if you have enough memory, you should be able to run multiple test cases in parallel without any issues.
Okay. And there is still, like with DbUnit 5, and there's no conflict with, like, you can say, you can order test. So like, let's say you want to add a row, and then in like the following thing, you want to like look up to make sure that row is added to kind of keep like each test only like testing one thing. You'll be able to do that, right?
Yes, so the thing is that, is it possible to use JUnit 5's option to run the test methods on a given order so that the state of the last method becomes the state of the next method? Yes, it is also possible. Because DbUnit and DbUnit Rider are just regular JUnit 5 extensions. Yes. And also you can combine it with any other JUnit extension.
Do you recommend that the version number for the container should really match your version number for your libraries and version numbers for everything else, including what's in production? Like all that should line up? Do you really agree with that statement?
So you mean when setting up the dependencies in the build file? That's one thing? Or so you mean this particular image here? Yeah.
Like that should match. You should probably use like Maven properties to make sure that everything matches what you have in production, what you're testing, so that way.
Yeah, I guess
that
like
way
how
the
would
versions
you
are
maybe
equal.
connect to like your organization?
Yeah, so the thing is, how, if that number, say, if the number of your production environment is available at build time here, or is consumable as a Maven artifact, you may be able to have some sort of plugin in order to extract that number and inject it into test cases. But if that configuration is completely external to where you're building, there's no other way that you can do it. You have to do it by hand.
Or I guess, yeah, like I mean, it's probably through Maven configurations, but like, probably ideally what you wouldn't just be using, pulling it down from some external source, but like your DBs would hopefully be having some sort of schema and container set up, and you can actually pull from that, like your internal container repository. Would that just be Maven?
I think that, so this thing right now is pulling these images from Docker Hub. So is there a way to instruct test containers to pull it from some other container registry? Yes, there is. That shouldn't be a problem. And it works whether you're running with a Docker daemon, or in my case, I'm running Podman. There used to be a company called Atomic Jar, which was the one that fostered test containers, was acquired by Docker close to 2 years ago, I think. And that they have they have two products. One is for free. It's called Testcontainers Desktop, which is kind of like a replacement for Docker Desktop and Podman Desktop. And the other is called Testcontainers Cloud. This is a paid product, which you don't run the daemon locally. You just connect to something living somewhere in the cloud. Now, I mentioned this just so you know that you have options. It's just a matter of you to evaluate which one of them makes sense for your particular use case.
And then also, I guess also when it comes to like your data sets, like you have XML and YAML, which is JSON an option?
I don't know if JSON is available. If it's not, it's possible as an option to be added to Database Rider.
And then also, are you able to like reference some sort of like external repository? Again, like maybe your database developers, they have like, here is something that is completely like maybe sets up a database into like, a production like, facsimile with like a bunch of data. And so that way you don't have to have it be copied in all the different repos. Are you able to like reference an external repo or external location?
So in the case of DbUnit and Database Rider, they really don't care where those files reside as long as they are reachable within the class path. So if you have a collection of files that should be shared across different projects, and they happen to, I don't know, maybe it's a Git submodule, or maybe some other way, you will have to use likely your build tool to orchestrate how to get those files at the right location before your test cases are run. Yeah, easily doable with both Maven and Gradle.
So I like using JQuick. I don't know if you're familiar with JQuick, but JQuick is a property test. So you could, property tests are, you pit it against each other. So in other words, if you insert 5 and you query something of those 5, you should get 5 back. Like that's the foundation for that. Just want to let you know. I think all that would be like a great combination for everything you showed here as well. There's also JQuick Testcontainers, so you can project out on GitHub that you can use.
Yeah, definitely. So again, this is only to showcase what is the base, the minimum setup that you can have, and you can certainly combine it with other extensions available for JUnit that give you those benefits that you're seeking. That this again, this is very simple. Once the data exists in somewhere, in some form, you can modify it on the fly as needed be with these other extensions.
And just another question. So I guess you could layer things in, right? You could, I don't know if you do tests on the repository and then add that service layer and then add.
Yes. So
Have it all wired in.
right, exactly. So test containers is not a unit testing specific technology. You can use it with anything. It could be integration, it could be functional. As a matter of fact, just because it's a thing that allows you to run software on a container, you can also run it on production. If for whatever reason you want to simplify how to set up containers, then you can use it. So don't think that just because it has the name test on it can only be used for testing. That's what I want to say. It's a technology that allows you to run any software on containers. That's basically it.
And they have like local stack for AWS.
Yeah, they support local stack for AWS and many other things. So just have just browse to the set of modules that are already existing there. There's plenty of things that you can consume immediately off the go. Just add one more dependency to your build tool, and that will be it. Yeah. Yeah.
I tried one of the options for GCP, where we are trying to integrate the infrastructure, GCP infrastructure.
TCP. Google Cloud. I think there are some services that allow you to run GCP locally, and those you can run on a container as well. Yes.
Yeah, but if there are some technical glitches there, is there a contact point to reach out for this?
For the test containers modules, yes, there has to be at least a way to contact the author. And all these modules are available as open source, so you can navigate to the open source repository and contact the authors there as well. Yeah.
How complex can the data set injection table structure manage? Like, say for example, I want to test like a prepared statement that has like, say a couple joins and whatnot. Like, how complex can I make that data set injection be?
It should work exactly as you would expect. So if the trick here will be defining the data in the right order so that all the reference will be fulfilled. What I will suggest in this case is to use the facility that DbUnit exposes to connect to the database and extract a data set so that you can see how it looks like, and then you can do changes manually or retry it again now that you know what's the shape of all the elements that were extracted. Yeah.
Related to that, so in this case, you didn't create those tables, DbUnit created them for you, but if you had like an init SQL.
Oh. No, those tables were created by Spring Data. So here's the DDL that Spring Data uses for that table. And based on that schema is that we're expecting that particular data set to match. Yeah. So DbUnit does not create the database schema. Nothing at all. You have to do it in some other way. You could use Flyway, yes, and your data sets will have to be applied after the migration, so it will have the right shape. Flyway or Liquibase, well, anything else that allows you to do migrations.
So you can use Flyway as an interesting configuration of DbUnit.
Right, so the thing about using migration tools, they will have to be run after the initial schema is set and before you do the insertion of your first data set, because otherwise your data set might not match the names of your expectations. All right, well, thank you very much, and continue enjoying the Devnexus. And don't forget I have test container stickers.